Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unmuzzled, a podcast. We spell that P-A-W because it's all about animals all the time. Today, I have a fabulous guest. He's after my own heart because if you listen to this podcast regularly or you know me personally, you know I left corporate America. I always tell you guys it was the best decision I ever made. And John Fabiano, who's going to be on, he will tell you it's also the best decision he has ever made. He is doing incredible photography work around the world. In fact, it's a whole other country that he's in, so we had to adjust our time. But we're going to get to him and all of his fabulousness and photography and just a great story of taking a leap of faith and it paying off, which again, I've told you guys over and over again, it's not easy, but it's worth it. Presenting sponsors, thank you. Thank you so much to our presenting sponsors. Yucca Fence is a family-owned, trusted provider of high-quality fencing solutions with over 57 years of experience. They take pride in protecting what you love the most and give back to rescues, shelters, and humane societies through their partnerships. They give you a free, no-obligation estimate and use the highest quality materials. For transparency and peace of mind, visit Yucca Fence for all your fencing needs. Canine Cruise is the place to take your pet. They offer dog and cat boarding, dog daycare, pet retail, and mindful day school. Tons of indoor space with a huge yard. Canine Cruise is your one-stop shop for professional pet care in Chicago. Kiki's Corner Natural Pet Foods in downtown Winfield, just a block south of CDH Hospital on the railroad tracks. Kiki's has all your food and health aid needs for dogs and cats. Kiki's Corner for a healthy, happy pet. Sniffing out a new vet? Bond Vet is a new breed of vet care that offers everything from primary care to walk-in urgent care visits. And right now, they've got a special treat for our listeners. You can use code UNMUZZLED to get $50 off your pet's first visit by booking at bondvet.com. That's code UNMUZZLED at BONDVET.com for $50 off. Thank you, sponsors. I appreciate it. I'm bringing John right in because we have so much to get to. Thank you so much, John, for joining me.
Of course. Happy to. Thank you for having me.
So tell us what country you're in right now.
I am currently in the Netherlands.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to get to all of this. But first of all, you were the 2024 documentary Dog Photographer of the Year, which I can't imagine how much that means to you. But I want to get to that. I just wanted to come out of the gate with that because considering you didn't know a ton about photography and just started with a small camera and now are doing this amazing initiative called Wags Around the World is just remarkable. But tell me, first of all, growing up, number one, did you have a love of animals and dogs in particular? And were you always invested or interested in photography?
Yeah, definitely a love. I would say it's more of an obsession with dogs. When I grew up, it was a dog, Lola, family dog, that I would say was the original obsession. Everything that I signed, papers in school, I'd write John and Lola on it. We were a combined unit, it seemed. So that love of dogs is something that I had my entire life. And then as I got older and it just stuck with me. And I really, I had this kind of an interest in photography for years. So never something that I really focused on or honed in on. But then I got to a point where COVID hit. I had a lot of time on my hands and I decided to invest in my first camera and started taking lessons and quickly realized that my favorite subject to photograph was dogs.
I love that. And I think too, I hear this a lot, especially on this podcast. It's almost like COVID made people, number one, more cognizant of just, how much time we spend working in corporate America. I'll say that, but also just the ability to try new things because you had time. And for a lot of people, me included, it kind of pivoted the way that your life went. And it's so interesting to me that this, pandemic changed lives and a lot of times for the better. Obviously we won't talk about all of the illness and people that passed away, but, when you think about how your life turned around, it's pretty remarkable. But you did have a corporate job and you at one point decided, okay, enough of this. I don't want to do this anymore. What was like the initial goal? Because I know it wasn't to travel around the world.
Yeah, it really, it kind of was. That was the initial goal, was to travel around the world. But then I said I had to do it with more of a focus. So that idea to travel went back years before COVID ever hit. And I said, if I ever was going to do something like that, I would want to do it and sort of work on a bigger project. Traveling just to travel, I think I've made, it would have been exciting, but I would have had this pull or drive to have a sort of a greater thing to work on. So photography is kind of words that fit right in. And once I got the idea of looking at dogs in different cultures and photographing them is a way to document those relationships, it was an idea that I just couldn't kick. So I kept that idea. I worked on it sort of on the side while I was still working in corporate America. And then I got to a point where I was ready, and I said, all right, I think I'm good to go. I'm in a good spot in my life. And I picked up and left.
Pretty remarkable. And it takes balls to do this. It definitely takes guts to say, I am going to leave something that gets me health benefits, pays me a significant amount of money. I assume that's kind of like I was comfortably living, I could pretty much do what I want. I don't have kids. So it was easy. But one thing I've learned is if you're not uncomfortable, you're not going anywhere, to make yourself a little bit uncomfortable and know, okay, this is going to take a little bit of stress. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some hard work, but it ends up being so worth it. And I try to tell people that, and I know I understand, like, because being comfortable is easy, it's so easy. So to look now, and I want to talk about Viola a little bit, because I know that she kind of is your inspiration for everything you do. But tell us about her a little bit, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, she's a rescue dog. I got her in 2019. She was on her way up from the south. Her litter was dumped at the side of the road, and she was getting driven up to Canada, actually. With a rescue there, they just have more space, and I sort of intercepted her because I live in Buffalo, New York. So before she crossed over the border, I got her as a puppy, and she's been my girl since. I just absolutely adore her. She is without a doubt, who I miss the most when I'm traveling. She's currently staying with my parents, and I'm hoping to get her sometime soon and hopefully bring her over to Europe so we can spend some time over here together. But she, in front of the camera, to me, is like what really clicked. Like, there's nothing I love to capture more than images of her. It's really special. As much as I photograph other dogs, everyone knows that your own dog, that relationship that you have is so incredibly special. So one of the trips I did when I was focusing on rescue dogs in the United States was to visit the people who originally rescued her and transported her up. So her and I drove down from Buffalo down to we were in South Carolina, I believe is where the rescue was located. And it was just a really emotional time for me to meet the people who gave me the greatest gift I've ever received in my dog. And I was just so grateful and so thankful for the work that they do, which is so selfless. And to show them at that point, 5 or 6 years later, like, this is what it became. Like, this is the product of your hard work. And I hope I showed them how much I truly appreciated and love what they did and what they gave to me.
That makes me cry because it's so true. I think for people that rescue animals, me being on the volunteer side of it at an open admission Chicago animal control, every animal that I had a piece of helping get into rescue or get to an adopter, I care about still. When you get those updates from the people that have adopted or the rescues that took in the dog, it is so meaningful to see kind of, how much they blossom outside of those concrete cage walls. That was remarkably put by you. I think it is so special to be able to thank those people that do that work, because it's really hard, and it's really hard right now with an overflowing shelter system.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the people who are doing it day in and day out, like yourself. It's such selfless work. It has such a positive impact on so many families. All those rescues that end up and like those dogs become the world of those people. And it never would have happened without the rescues who, put in the time, effort. They get sick dogs. They get dogs that have behavior problems, and you work with them, you nurse them to health, and you give them a chance to live and be a dog to the fullest. So every time I meet anyone in rescue, I have, as a dog lover, I say thank you to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And speaking of animal control and rescue dogs, so one thing too, when I started to volunteer at animal control, what we found, and I know that you have mentioned this before, is, we always, not we, like most people take a photo and they're standing up and looking down at their dog and taking the photo. Getting eye level of an animal is so important because you can literally see into their soul. Like you can see their eyes, you can see them smiling or panting or whatever. But for you, like that was really important to you. And when we look at some of your photos, you'll see, like, for the most part, you're at eye level, which is also brutal for your back. But that part is important to you.
Yeah, I feel it more and more the older I get every day. But a good day of shooting means that my pants and my shirt or my jacket are going to be dirty. I'm going to be on one knee almost the entire day shooting, and then a lot of times I'm down on my belly. You have to get down to get face to face with a dog, especially a dog laying down, or smaller dogs are tough. They're like the puppies you're showing right now. You got to get down for them, but I just know it's worth it. And, the shot from above is going to be the top of their head. So you got to get down on eye level with the hounds.
Yeah. And, these photos are some that I took off your social media, but they're just so good because they say so much. So for you too, tell me about WAGs around the world. I think, it's remarkable, even like these shots I was going crazy over, like to see these dogs working in their environment, which is your goal. You wanted to put dogs in their environment. But where did this idea kind of come from? I know you told us a little bit in the beginning, but now it has become this really much bigger thing.
Yeah, it started where I really had 4 different groups of dogs that I wanted to look at. So it was working dogs, purebred dogs, wild dogs, and then a group I like to call the underdogs, which the rescue dogs fall into that category. And it's just the different ways that people around the world see dogs. So we talked about Viola, and like she's like a family member to me. She sleeps in my bed, she's in the house and treated like royalty. Where you go to other places and working dogs are tools. They live outside. It's not that they're like abused or they live in poor situations, but they just don't have sort of that emotional connection always with the humans who own them. When you go to northern Greenland, you see some of the handlers really love their dogs and they have great connections with them, but other people, they just see them as a tool to help them survive. They're taking them out into Arctic conditions to hunt, and those dogs are just a way to help them survive. So they don't come in the house. They live outdoors in the really frigid conditions the entire year, but these are dogs that were bred and are built for this.
Yeah, I think too, you've probably seen some shit. We put a lot of rating on this, but that part is probably hard. Like it's probably as an animal lover, and this, same with rescues. Like we see some really bad shit, and it sucks. So for you, is there kind of like a biggest lesson that you've learned in all of this? I assume it's to be understanding of cultures, and around here, somebody leaves their dog out, people are calling 911. So it's just a whole different way of living. But is there kind of like a biggest lesson that you've learned in all of this?
Yeah, I never wanted to I wanted to go in with an open mind, I would say, and not come in with my ideas of the way a dog should be, because that's just not the reality. And one does come to mind in Greenland, where I was in a town. The town is the northernmost indigenous town in the world, called Sierraplug. There is one store in the town that's about the size of a 7-Eleven, and that's it. There's not a car in the town, let alone a street light. And I saw dogs got in a quick fight, and one got bit on the nose and was bleeding. It wasn't horrible, but it's the kind of thing that as a dog owner, I would probably take my dog to the vet, just seeing it bleeding like that. And there's not much that they do in these situations. And it was kind of hard for me to sit and watch that and just be like, they're not giving them a ton of medical attention. These dogs are just kind of out there. And this probably happens where they get into scruffles like that, much like you would think wild dogs might do this. And, the cut, it was probably more blood than it was anything that was too bad, more of just a skin wound. Healed up. The next day, the dog ran for 6 hours on a sled ride, taking me from one town to the other. So it's the resiliency of these dogs, and it's the situation they're in. And as much as I would have done, and if it was my dog at home, it's just not the way that everybody views dogs and the way that dogs are treated in every other situation. But it's not saying this dog isn't well fed, looked after. And if it was something like extremely serious with them, that they probably would have to get on a sled and ride for hours and hours to go to another town to seek attention for them. But it's just when you go to a remote place like that, you realize you don't have the luxuries that you have at home.
Yeah, so interesting. I did a podcast with a rescuer. I believe it was in Thailand. I'm trying to remember, but they don't euthanize animals there. They just allow them to die naturally. So an animal may be riddled with cancer or break 2 legs, and they just believe in like letting that animal die peacefully. And that, especially as Americans, I think is hard for us to understand, that an animal in pain can't be relieved of it. Did an amazing podcast with a vet a few weeks ago that said, never say I'm sorry to your pet, say thank you, because you are relieving them of this pain that is obviously, from old age. But also it makes you think, as Americans, are we doing the right thing always?
I saw the same thing in India, and it was like the group, it was at a shelter, and it was like the group of dogs with like illnesses that were paralyzed. And it was pretty dire, to be honest with you. It's sad seeing them. And I asked, I go, do any of these dogs ever get adopted? And he said no. But the same thing, they don't believe in euthanasia. And it's at a point where you ask, it's like, why are you keeping them alive, or do you want to put them out of pain? It's a question you can grapple with and argue both ways. But if you go up and look at it, you say, never do it if they don't have to. But then you go and look it in the eyes and say, is there any joy left, or is this animal that doesn't understand living in pain day in and day out? It's something that when you see it face to face, it's a bit shocking.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of clients, whether it's Live Like Rue clients for cancer care or my pet care clients, I will send a quality of life scale, because it does help you, especially if you've never dealt with a sick pet or an older pet, to know when it's time. But that scale of, are they eating? Are they happy? Are they, being and pooping? Like, it helps you in your brain say, okay, I don't think they're feeling good anymore. Maybe we should think about it. So yeah, it is nice to have that, which is, basically certified information. That's not just a guess. It helps. Well, this is one of the photos that struck me. Can you talk about this picture?
Yeah. So this, are you familiar with Territorio de Zagates in Costa Rica? No. So it's a sanctuary that I think they currently have over 1,800 dogs. It's the woman who started it, Leah Battle, is just unbelievable. She inherited a plot of land and turned it into a massive dog sanctuary. I think it's the biggest in the world. So when I was in Costa Rica, it was far and away. I mean, I say Costa Rica, I say the world. It was at like the top of my list of places to go. Rescue dogs are my style of dog, my love of dogs, even though I love all of them. And then to see them at this scale it was unbelievable. You enter this complex and there are dogs everywhere. So we talked earlier about how, I'm always bending or down, and like, sometimes you get in that moment where you block out the outside world where you're trying to capture an image. And then I would kind of come out of and get ready, and there's just 3 or 4 or 5 dogs right next to me. Like, who's this person? What are they doing so low to the ground on our level? We went on a hike and it was just dogs everywhere. And it was the coolest place I've ever been.
Yeah. I mean, and again, this is probably like really leaves you kind of heartbroken, but a lot of us would never ever be exposed to this. So to be able to see it, through your lens is pretty remarkable. And then I wanted to talk about this photo because I think this is kind of what won you the award, I believe. And I was thinking because you immediately, like my eyes immediately go to the dogs, like, but then when you look at the rest of this picture and what is going on, I mean, it's remarkable. So can you just take us kind of into this scene and what was going on?
Yeah, so this was that 6 hour sled ride I mentioned earlier. We were going from Sierpluk to Kanik, two places up in northern Greenland. And I was on the sled. We really couldn't communicate because my guide didn't speak any English. I don't speak any Greenlandic. So I was just kind of along for the ride and was able to capture images whenever we stopped, which usually was to untangle the ropes. In Greenland, the dogs run in a straight line across. So here we have 13 dogs, and then they're constantly jockeying for position. So as they're doing it, they're just like that, but they're switching who's in the middle, who's on the outside, and they're tangling up the ropes. So when he would stop to untangle, I'd usually hop off and see if I could snap some photos. And I turned and looked and saw that iceberg behind, and I go, I got to get a photo with this as the backdrop. So I ran over. And just snapped as many photos as I could until I sort of got the signal, hop back on the sled. We're hitting the road again. And it was an intense ride. It was just such a like a whiteout blizzard when we started. I could barely see the back of the dogs. And it's one of those moments that question me. It's like, what am I doing? Am I setting myself up to die here? But I was very thankful when I started seeing some of the houses in the snow that we were reaching our destination.
That's so cool. So do you have a favorite spot or, just something that may have, changed your direction or said, oh, I definitely made the right choice?
I will say, okay, so I'm going to say first I'll answer favorite spot. I always say Japan. But Japan is just like a country in a whole. I was like mesmerized by it. It's such an incredible and special place. And it's funny I say that because the dogs in Japan, I focused on Shibas. That's where I was focusing on purebreds. And Shibas don't have much interest in other humans like that. I wasn't getting like the excited attention, the heartwarming things that you would expect from a dog normally. Shibas are pretty independent and they have their owner, and who the stranger with the camera has no interest of them. So the dogs there, I don't feel like I connected with as much as I do other places. But the place where was Germany, where I first went. And one of my first meetings was with a woman named Agate. She owns a kennel called Naglersee Kennels, and she breeds German Shepherds. At the time, she had 10 of them. She had her 5 adult females and then 5 puppies that were recently born, all living in her house. So she's a breeder, but like her house was chaos, 10 German Shepherds everywhere. And we just connected really quickly on dogs, how much she loves them, how much I love them. And she just was so interested in what I was doing. And this was really early. Like I felt like a nobody. Like I was just blindly reaching out all over the world to people. Can I come visit you and take photos of your dog? And I think she just gave me a lot of confidence that like, if I'm going to be able to connect with people throughout this whole ordeal as well. And she's a friend still. I've visited her a couple times after. And I'm always thankful for like her encouragement. And I felt very motivated leaving my visit with her. It was just a really nice feeling.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, we get into these pet businesses or animal businesses or nonprofits to deal with the animals, but what happens is you end up dealing with a lot of people because you have to. So for you, is there, obviously I love that you left corporate America and made that jump, but is there advice that you would give for somebody looking to do that? I mean, I get asked it a lot and I always say, go with your heart. You won't regret it. Will it be hard? Yes, but it just takes time. So is there any advice that you would give for taking that jump?
Yeah, I don't think you ever truly feel like you're ready. And you said that word regret, and that was what was driving me quite a bit, that I knew if I didn't do this, I was going to regret it. So people think that I just left and started traveling and didn't have much direction, but I planned this out for years. It wasn't something I did on a whim. So as long as you put in some time and effort and feel like you're prepared, then go for it. And, you can always break back into prison if you want to go back to corporate America. They'll happily have you back. There's plenty of jobs out there, and you're never going to regret some time taken off going after something that you really wanted to do. And then, whether it was possible or not. Maybe you never go back to the corporate world, or maybe you do. But to live a life without regret is something that I try to do. And that was definitely a motivation behind doing this.
I mean, I'm never going back. I don't know. I don't know how I could ever go back now. Just the amount of freedom, I'm in control of my life completely, not completely, but it is such a better feeling. And to not have to do those damn trainings and all of that, where you're trying to scroll through and Sarah, your training is overdue. I will say I was always on time with those. Okay. So what's next? So, do you have kind of an itinerary for the next few months? How does it work?
I'm keeping it pretty open-ended. Like I said, I probably am rejoining the corporate world. A lot of people, anytime I've had any sort of coverage on this, everyone's asking me like, oh, you have daddy's credit card, or like, oh, you must be rich. Like, I saved up money and I lived very cheap. I stretched my dollar as far as possible. And I didn't do this for money. I probably could have tried to monetize it more, but it would have felt unauthentic. I just really wanted to do it my way, which is why I didn't look for a way to just make money off this. So it's something I'm going to continue to do my whole life. I probably will have to find a career that pays the bills in the meantime. Maybe down the line it does become full-time. That's the dream, I would say. But I'm really happy where I'm at now, that I can still plan my trips with dog photography in mind. You showed those photos. We went, my girlfriend and I went to Hungary on a whim. And then it's like, I'm checking out a new place, but how can I do dogs and dog photography with it? And we were out in rural Hungary with those Commodores, those dogs with the big coats. And we both said it's the most unique thing you can experience in a country. That's not a normal tourist activity. So to meet people and meet their dogs and learn about their lives is really cool. And I'll be a traveler my whole life, and traveling with a focus on dogs has been a lot of fun and something I'll continue to do.
And we all see these dogs, on the dog show and the kennel club, and, they're well groomed and, well bred and going after like the ultimate award. But, to see them like actually like working and in their environment, it is amazing. There's a reason that they look like that. So
yeah,
it is. I mean, you really are educating people when you go and do this. So, I would even love if you could make it into a nonprofit somehow. How can you go about like educating people, getting some money that is tax deductible for through people, and somehow helping others? I think that would be awesome. And I can always help you with that part.
Yeah, I've had people suggest like start a GoFundMe, this and that, and it just I don't know. Maybe it's I'm weird about trying to accept money for it. I'm just really doing it out of love.
Yeah.
I've just enjoyed it so much. And when you're not taking money from anyone else, then you don't owe anyone anything. So I'm doing it my way, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad that anyone else is enjoying it along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that. I think, I always talk about passion projects and going for it. And, if it is a passion of yours, there's a point where you have to run it like a business if you really want to grow, which is what happened with Live Like Gru. I rescued a pitty. He had cancer. Everybody wanted to hear about it and know what we were doing every day for his bucket list. But then, paying it forward to others going through that really one of the worst times in their lives and trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this? And now, 10 years later, I have an audit every year and I have taxes, and I'm, we're really struggling for donations, but it's become a business. And what starts sometimes as a love and a passion and just trying to make lives better, it's hard sometimes to turn it into a business when, you know, you just want to go back to those first days when you were like, oh, I love this dog so much and we're going to just live carefree. But it is nice, you know, to help other people too. So I love the sentiment of just doing what you love and going for it, and, you know, hopefully not worrying about all of the people talking around you about money and where it's coming from. Who cares? He's doing amazing work.
It was kind of eye-opening to me that, like, that's what seems to be the most popular take out of it. It's like, how does he afford this? Oh, he must be rich. Like things like that. It's like, do you want to stay in budget hotels in India? Like it sounds a lot more glamorous than it is. Like I really would love to offer up my exact itinerary to you and see if that seems like the dream you painted out to me. For me, it is. Like I just knew that was all part of the process, and I loved every minute of it.
I mean, and amazing that you won a documentary award like that. I mean, it's just kind of like a stamp of like, okay, you know, I can do this. I started, you know, as a hobby photographer with a small camera. It is proof that, you know, and a lot of photographers I have on this, like, you need to have a special eye, you know, if you take your eye, I take amazing photos of my clients with my iPhone. And they all say you should be a photographer. It's just that you have to have that eye and understand the style. So great work by you. And I love that you have that stamp just to say, I started this, you know, and it was not that, I never thought it would be this big, and just phenomenal to win an award like that.
Yeah, it's funny too that I also didn't think I was good enough to compete in that. I submitted my photos like at the last, the submissions are open for months. They're open right now, and they close in like early September, maybe. And I think it was like the end of August. I was finally like, you know what? I just have to throw my hat in the ring. Like I ignored the email. I'd signed up for the emails for it. I followed the work for years. I idolize a lot of the judges and the people who have won awards in the past. So that's another thing too. Like you'll only know if you can compete if you actually try. So I'll keep that in mind going forward too, because I just never thought I was on the same playing field to get an honorable mention as the people who compete. So it came through, and then I'm like clicking through into it, and it's like, wait, first place. Like I was in awe and disbelief. So I was, very, very grateful for that honor.
Yeah, and amazingly, a friend of mine, I didn't know about you. She knows that I do podcasts. I used to work with her in television, which was my corporate job. She sent me, you know, the article and was like, this could be a great guest. I'm like, oh, I'll reach out to him. And honestly, normally when I reach out to people, they don't reply. So I appreciate your reply.
You and I both.
Yeah, right. You're up here stalking people just like me. But yeah, thank you for your time. Just incredible work, and really life-changing, not just for you, but for the people that view your pictures. You give an insight to worlds where many of us never will be able to visit or even see. So thank you, John, for this magical work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. And I thank you again, the work you do for dogs in need, what I like to call the underdogs. I will always appreciate your work.
Awesome. Everybody, John Fabiano, amazing. Here's the Instagram. Go follow it. Wags Around the World. Wags Around the World. Here's his award-winning photo. Sorry, I got to take that banner off because you got to see the whole photo. It's just amazing. John, we really appreciate your time. Just, again, amazing work and a great interview, which is always nice. That always helps. Supporting sponsors, you're up. Thank you to our supporting sponsors. On the corner of Montrose and Troy in Chicago's Irving Park neighborhood, you'll find a hidden gem known as Templestowe Pub. They have a great selection of local draft beers, and the Malort is always flowing. Oh no. Join us for a charity bingo event or a tap takeover with a local brewery. Don't want to leave your dog at home? All good, bring them along. Whether you're throwing darts or playing a banger on the jukebox, you're guaranteed to have an awesome time. So head on over to 3135 West Montrose and look for the old style sign. The Canine PT is Chicago's highest rated dog physical therapy clinic, and they're dedicated to enhancing the lives of your four-legged companions as they age or when recovering from an injury. Give the gift of pain relief to your furry friend. They also offer a discount for rescue dogs. For more information, visit thecaninept.com. Intuitive animal behavior dog training, positive reinforcement, force-free and fear-free training solutions for every dog. Jenna offers individualized training, behavioral boarding, shelter support, and positive reinforcement board and train services. Creating an environment that is happy and healthy for your pets is so important. For more information, go to intuitiveanimalbehavior.com. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.